everyone. This is Margaret Manning with 60 and Me. This is the place where women over 60 come to be inspired. And today I'm speaking with Ben Gran. Ben is a freelance writer. He's been a freelance writer for 3 years now and works with clients all around the world. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, thank you, Margaret. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here. We've got a lot of questions for you. Our community, 60 and Me, has about 40,000 women now over 60. And a lot of them are facing situations where they have been retired. Well, they're retiring, or they perhaps have been let go from their job. This is something that happens quite frequently, and they find themselves living on a pension or living on a salary that just isn't going to work for them. So they start to look for part-time work. Now, you are a freelance writer, and I know you've made a success of this career. I'd like to talk to you about, or have you talk to us about how women who are now without a job can jumpstart a career in writing. Where they get started, what do they do first?
If I was in the situation of recently having lost a job and I wanted to immediately start making some money on my own, actually freelance writing or solo consulting, I feel is one of the very best ways to do it. Is that I feel like it's easier to get multiple small project-based jobs, quote unquote, than it is to get one job with like a salary and benefits. It's easier to recreate your own income that hopefully by the time you get established can be bigger than your old job's income from being a solo consultant or freelancer. It's easier to do that than it is to find another job that would replace your old salary.
Now, why is that then, Ben? Because you think there's just a lot of work out there now, that the internet has opened up opportunity, or what makes that the case, do you think?
I think there are a few factors contributing to it. One is the internet. I make my living on the internet almost exclusively. I have very, very few local clients that I actually meet with in person in my own home city. I'm based in Des Moines, Iowa. Which is it's a really great city, but it's a small city in the middle of the Midwestern United States. And most people are very surprised to hear that I'm a writer, because I think a lot of people assume that if you're a writer, you must live in New York or Los Angeles or San Francisco or something, but it is possible to live anywhere and make a living working with people all over the world, because the internet makes that possible.
Of course.
Another trend I feel is I feel like a lot more companies are creating more project-based opportunities than they are full-time jobs, because companies have more flexibility to hire contractors on a project basis without the added overhead and commitment and difficulty of hiring full-time employees. So there's a lot of flexibility contributing to it on both sides. And frankly, I think, hopefully people are choosing freelance work and consulting work not out of necessity all the time, but out of choice. I mean, I think more people are interested in having the freedom and the flexibility and not having a ceiling on how much they can earn. That's one of the great things about being an independent consultant. A lot of people assume, it's scary and it's uncertain and you never know how much you're going to make from one month to the next. But the good side of it is there's no limit to how much I can make. When I had a full-time corporate job, I had a salary and I was supposed to be there 40 hours a week. And at the end of the year, if I was lucky, I might get a 2% raise, But when I'm independent, I can make as much as I want. It all depends on how well I can apply myself and find opportunities. So, yeah.
So, if that is the case, though, there's obviously, in your mind, a lot of work that's available. You're writing for blogs or doing online work and doing it, as you said, from a distance. And a lot of our community is in, they're not in New York either. They're all around the world, but they have internet. And I think what you're saying is, as long as you've got good connection and, the willingness to go for it, you can actually replace a full-time job with a writing career.
I think that's very true. And I think people need to redefine our concept of what it means to be employed.
Yes, yeah.
What it means to be successful. I really feel like we're still just barely scratching the surface of what's possible that the internet has created. It's not just a place to play Facebook games and watch sports or, whatever. Like, there are all these great ways that we can use the internet to connect with people in a very fulfilling and profitable way to make a living. And I mean, I used to have a full-time job at a big company, very well-respected company. Most people would have thought, oh, he's set, he's got a steady job, he's successful, but that wasn't what I wanted out of life. That wasn't a tenable situation for the long term. I didn't get laid off, but I probably would have
Well, I
if I
think
would have tried to stick with that job much longer.
Well, I
So,
think you're absolutely, yeah, I think you're right. I think you're really right there, Ben. I think that the thing that has, I mean, the world is changing, and that the view of having a full-time job as being the goal is actually not, there anymore. That, as you said, companies are prepared to take people on for projects. And I guess as a writer, then you've got to be prepared to have multiple themes going on in your work. I mean, I presume that you don't write about the same thing for every client. So, what do women have to think about in terms of preparing themselves for a topic that they may not know anything about? How do you manage that research?
I would say one of the most important skills you can have as a writer is being a good interviewer. And actually, a lot of the time, if you have a client that's in an industry that might be unfamiliar to you, you need to create a good questionnaire that you can send back to that client and ask them to provide more details, try and get more angles. Trying to think of an example. Like, I used to work for a company that and this was a very technical writing project, but the company makes steel. They're a steel maker, and they make like really big chunks of steel that are used to create foundations for shipyards and like offshore oil rigs. I mean, they make like incredibly complex, heavy duty stuff. And they hired me to write marketing case studies about some of the success stories that their company had had. And I'm really, the funny thing is, even though I make part of my living as a technical writer, I'm not always the most technically minded person. I don't always know about specs and details and machines. I'm kind of clueless on a lot of that. But what I am good at is finding a story and helping turn something
Yes.
into a narrative. And so I've gotten very good over the last few years of being a full-time freelancer of crafting questions that can help draw out the story and identify the most compelling points. And like, for example, you might have to figure out how to ask your clients, like, what makes your business different? What does your company do better than anyone else in your field? What is the most compelling value that your clients say they get from working with you? A lot of the time, the information is out there. The client just might not have thought to ask the questions in quite that way, or they might not have organized the information in quite the same way that you are going to put it together. And then there's also often there's a lot of great online research you can do. You can usually get up to speed on any topic fairly quickly just from doing a few Google searches, seeing what other people have written about it, and then frankly going out and writing a better version. Yeah, exactly. No, you piece together the breadcrumbs, you figure out, okay, well, here's the general conventional wisdom on this topic, and now I'm going to go write my own take on it. And based on, you can kind of blend it together based on what you get from your client, what you find online, maybe you have your own perspective or your own experience that you can add. So there are a lot of ways to create valuable content and to prepare. No,
I think that this is really, really great advice though, because I think a lot of women going into writing as a career after having not done that in their lives, I mean, they may have lots of other experience, but just not writing, would not know where to start. And I think that reassurance that, you can, go online and to get a start on writing an article, you can ask, like you said, ask questions that you mustn't be afraid to kind of not admit that you don't know, but just say, hey, this would help me to be, able to write better for you if you answer these questions. What about the actual art of writing? Most women have written letters, or in a career they might have been a communications person. But how do you learn to be a good writer? What's the discipline?
Oh my! I think the best way to get better at writing is just to do it, just write. And I think whether you want to write for money or whether you're interested in someday writing memoirs for your family or something, like I feel like writing is just so important. It's such an important activity for humans to do. It helps us clarify our thoughts. It helps us leave a legacy. And I think probably the number one thing I'd recommend that people do, if you're interested in making money as a writer, you don't know where to begin. Maybe you don't have any like really relevant work samples. create your own work samples by starting your own website, starting your own blog, and just write. Like whatever you would like to get paid to write about that for free for yourself on your own website.
Yes.
And then you have right there, you have something you can show to people to say, here's a sample of my work. Here's how I write. Start a blog. I think that's one of the most important things you can do for a number of reasons. And I'm bad at this. I don't always take my own advice because I haven't updated my own blog in a few months, but that's because I'm too busy writing everyone else's blog.
Well, you're established, but that's a really great suggestion because blogs are very easy to set up these days. There's a lot of sites that don't cost very much or even free. And just write something that you know about, even if it's something that you may not end up, writing about in the future. But it's that practice of getting up every day and having a discipline of just writing for 15, 20 minutes and playing with words. You mentioned earlier about storytelling, and I love that word as it relates to writing. I know there's a way to construct a story, and this whole fascination, it's got to be amazingly interesting and curious. But what are the skills or the elements, I should say, of writing a great story?
Well, I think there has to be something that catches people's attention from the very beginning. A great opening line, or a lot of what I write is web content, web articles, blog articles. So a big part of success in writing a good blog article is having a great headline,
a title,
something that catches people's attention. Yeah, just a great title for the article that 5 crippling financial mistakes you're probably making, or the 10 most embarrassing reasons why people leave their jobs, or whatever it may be. There are a lot of ways to create a compelling sense of story just from that first opening line, and beyond that, I feel like you have to be very honest. You have to be very transparent, and in a way, as the author, make yourself vulnerable. Make yourself vulnerable to the audience. One of the other things, in addition to writing, I do stand-up comedy.
Okay.
Which is a whole other story. But one of the things I try to do as a stand-up comedian is I make myself vulnerable to the audience.
Yes.
And I try to create like a real sense of human connection. And I share intimate ideas and details. And you have to kind of adopt a sense of fearlessness to be a good storyteller and a good writer. The things that you might be afraid to write about, or the things you might be afraid to share, or the topics you might be afraid to touch on, those are exactly the things that you should write about. Because
they will come from your heart, because they'll be full of emotion.
Exactly.
It's a really good point too. And women over 60 have had enough experience that they can draw on to tell really wonderful stories. And whether you're writing a blog, as you said, or an article, that's the foundation, is just that wonderful life experience. So I think I think you were saying that a full-time career as a writer for a woman is actually a very valid, goal.
And it's never too late to start. I think like one of the most inspiring stories, who was it? The artist, Georgia O'Keeffe.
Yes.
She didn't start painting until she was like 80 or something. Is that right?
I think that's true. Mm-hmm.
I feel like there are so many stories out, and there are others that I can't think of the name, but there's a famous writer, who was a woman, and she didn't start writing until she was like in her 80s or 90s. I can't think of the name of it, but I mean, there are a lot of stories out there like that, where people kind of find their voice as an artist or as a writer or as a speaker, later in life, but it's never too late. It's never too late. And I think one advantage hopefully that women over 60 might have, especially if you're doing this writing thing as a second act, is that hopefully you have that sense of fearlessness, because you've already been through some things in your life. What do you have to lose? What could go so badly wrong if you tried to be a writer? There's really nothing. You're untouchable.
You've really captured the essence, actually, of women over 60, because I think there is that. Throughout your life, you're making so much effort to impress other people and to play the game. And if you take on a second career, a second act career, like you've described, with something that comes reasonably naturally, you can have fun with it, and there's plenty of opportunities to make money with it as well. So
Yeah, my mother is a wonderful writer,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
she would be great at being a writer, and I wish she would someday. And everyone in my family is a better writer than me. It's really embarrassing. Like, I'm the one who's supposed to be doing this for a living. And I think another bit of advice I'd like to offer to your audience of women over 60. I know that for a lot of women over 60, there's a lot of concern about age discrimination in the workplace. And that's very real. I mean, that's very
Absolutely.
true. And I think in a way that's an advantage of working online is I think online, hopefully anyway, you're mostly judged on your work and you're judged on what kind of a persona you present through your website, through your blog, through your proposals that you write to try and get projects. There are ways to present yourself working online where your age doesn't have to be front and center, the first thing people realize about you. So
No,
hopefully
that's
that can be a possibility.
no, that's been real. That's really, really great advice. And I think that where it all starts is mindset. You've got to have the right mindset for doing this. You've got to be confident, a little bit thick-skinned, and be prepared to just go for it and make a career of writing. So thank you, Ben. Really great advice. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Margaret.
Thank you.